The night my life fell apart started with a phone call I almost didn't answer. Unknown number. 11:47 p.m. I remember staring at the screen, debating whether to ignore it. I had an early meeting the next morning, and I was halfway through reheating leftover pasta. Nothing dramatic, nothing cinematic, just an ordinary Tuesday night in an ordinary apartment. I answered because I was expecting a delivery earlier that week and thought maybe it was the courier. It wasn't. "Is this Daniel Reeves?" The voice was flat, professional, the kind of voice that doesn't come with good news. "Yeah. Who's this?" "This is Detective Morales with the City Police Department. We need you to come down to the station tonight." I laughed a little. Nervous reflex. "Okay. What for?" A pause. "It's about Emma Collins, my best friend." My stomach dropped so fast I had to grab the edge of the counter. "What about Emma?" I asked. "Is she okay?" Another pause. Longer this time. "Sir, you need to come in." Emma Collins had been in my life for 12 years. We met our first week of university after both showing up late to the same psychology lecture and being forced to share the only 2 empty seats in the front row. She whispered, "This is humiliating." And I whispered back, "At least we'll never be forgotten." We weren't. We became inseparable almost instantly. Study partners, coffee addicts, shared notes, shared secrets, shared dreams. When my first relationship crashed and burned sophomore year, she showed up at my dorm with ice cream and a printed list titled "Reasons He Was Trash." When her dad passed away our senior year, I slept on the floor of her apartment for a week because she didn't want to be alone. We always said we were platonic soulmates, the kind of friendship people write movies about but don't believe actually exists. And for 12 years, it was perfect. Too perfect, I realize now. At the police station, they didn't put me in an interrogation room right away. They let me sit, alone, under fluorescent lights that buzzed like angry insects. I kept texting Emma. Me, "Hey, a detective just called me about you? What's going on?" Me, "Are you okay?" Me, "You're scaring me." No reply. Finally, a detective walked in. Morales, mid-40s, tired eyes. The kind of man who had seen every version of human disappointment. "Daniel," he said, sitting across from me. "When was the last time you spoke to Emma Collins?" "Yesterday," I said immediately. "We had coffee after work." "Where?"
Briar Café.
"Like always. Every Tuesday." He nodded, wrote something down. "And after that?" "She went home. I went home. That's it." He slid a photo across the table. Emma's car, wrapped around a streetlight, driver's side crushed, windshield shattered. My brain refused to process it. "She's in the hospital?" I asked. "Right? She's alive." Morales didn't answer right away. "Emma is in critical condition," he said carefully. "But that's not why you're here." My mouth went dry. "Then why am I here?" He studied me for a long moment. "Because before she lost consciousness, she told the paramedics you tried to kill her." I laughed. Actually laughed. A sharp, disbelieving sound that echoed off the walls. "That's insane," I said. "I would never. Emma is my best friend. I'd die before I hurt her." Morales didn't react. "She said you tampered with her brakes." I blinked. "What?" "She told medical staff you'd been acting strange, controlling, angry about a promotion she got. She said you threatened her last week." Each sentence felt like a brick hitting my chest. "No," I said. "No, that's not true. That's not. We celebrated her promotion. I bought her champagne." "Daniel," Morales said calmly, "we found your fingerprints under the hood of her car." I opened my mouth, closed it, opened it again. "I helped her change her battery 2 weeks ago," I said, "in her parking garage. Of course my prints are there." He wrote that down too. "And this?" he asked, sliding another paper forward. It was a screenshot of a text message. From me. "Sometimes I think it'd be easier if you just disappeared." My stomach flipped. "I never sent that," I said. "It came from your number." "I didn't send that." Morales just watched me. Not accusing. Not sympathetic. Just waiting. They let me go home that night, but not before taking my phone, my laptop, my car keys. Standard procedure, they said. By the time I walked out of the station, the sky was turning gray. I hadn't slept. I hadn't cried. I hadn't fully understood that my life had just split into before and after. By noon, the story was online. Local woman in critical condition. Friend questioned in suspected sabotage. They didn't name me yet, but they didn't need to. People who knew us connected the dots fast. My boss called me into his office that afternoon. "Dan," he said, not meeting my eyes, "HR thinks it's best if you take a leave of absence." "A leave," I repeated. "Until the investigation is over." I'd worked there 6 years. One headline and I was radioactive. Emma's sister, Lauren, blocked me on everything. Mutual friends stopped replying. One of them, Josh, finally sent a single message. "If this is true, you're dead to me." That word should have comforted me. Didn't, because doubt had already started spreading like mold. I replayed every moment with Emma in my head. Every joke, every hug, every late-night phone call. Looking for cracks, looking for signs. There were none. Just one memory that suddenly felt off. 3 weeks before the accident, we were at dinner. She'd asked, casually, "Do you ever feel like people don't see how much you do for them?" I shrugged. "Sometimes." "Why?" She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Just wondering." At the time, I thought she was talking about work. Now, it sounded like something else, like a test. 2 days later, detectives came back with a warrant. They searched my apartment, took my tools, my old laptop, even a notebook I used for grocery lists. I stood there uselessly while strangers picked apart my life. One of them held up a wrench. "Recognize this?" "It's a wrench," I said. "It matches markings on the brake line." My knees nearly buckled. I didn't touch her brakes. "Then someone wants it to look like you did." That was the first time anyone said it. And it wasn't even meant to comfort me. The real punch came a week later. Emma woke up, and she gave a statement. Detailed, emotional, convincing. She told police I'd grown obsessed with her success, that I resented her new job, that I'd said if I couldn't have the life I wanted, maybe she shouldn't either. She cried, they said. She seemed terrified of me. I listened to the recording in my lawyer's office, hands shaking. "That's not just a lie," I whispered. "That's a script." My lawyer, Anita Patel, leaned back in her chair. "Then we find out who wrote it," she said. And that was the moment I stopped being a confused friend and became a man fighting to prove he didn't try to murder the person he loved most in the world. I just didn't know yet that the person who framed me was the same one who'd held my hand through every heartbreak of my adult life. And she had planned this for a very, very long time. The first crack in Emma's story came from something so small the police almost ignored it. Parking receipt. Timestamped 8:12 p.m. Across town. The night she claimed I followed her home and threatened her in the garage. "She said you were outside her building at 8. Anita reminded the detective during a meeting I wasn't supposed to attend but insisted on anyway. Morales frowned at the receipt. "She could have stopped there first." "Then traffic cams will show it," Anita said calmly. They didn't. Instead, they showed something else. Emma's car leaving the parking structure at 8:16 p.m. Alone. No one following. No one nearby. Morales didn't apologize. But the way he stopped looking at me like a sure thing told me everything. My life, however, did not pause for evidence to catch up. Neighbors avoided eye contact. My landlord gently suggested I consider finding another place once things settled. My mother cried on the phone every night, whispering, "I know you'd never hurt anyone," like she was trying to convince herself. I stopped going outside except to meet Anita, and every time I closed my eyes, I saw Emma in that hospital bed, telling strangers I was a monster. "Walk me through your last month with her," Anita said one evening, legal pad ready. "Everything, even if it seems stupid." So I did. Coffee shop talks, movie nights, her new job offer. And then I mentioned the dinner, the one where she asked if I ever felt unappreciated. Anita's pen stopped moving. Did she bring up money at all recently? I hesitated. Yeah, a few times. How? She joked that once she got her signing bonus, she'd finally be ahead of me for once. I laughed. It wasn't weird. Anything else? I thought hard. Then it hit me. She asked for copies of some old photos. What kind of photos? College stuff. Group trips. She said she wanted to make a scrapbook. Anita looked up slowly. Did you send them digitally? Yeah. From your laptop? Yes. She wrote something down. Hard. Forensics took another look at my devices. That's when they found the first planted file. A deleted draft email from my account. Never sent, never opened, but saved in temporary memory. It read, "You think you're better than me now? We'll see how far you get without breaks." Timestamp, 2:14 a.m., 2 weeks before the crash. Problem? At 2:14 a.m. that night, I was in a group video call with 4 coworkers finishing a project. Logged. Recorded. Someone had accessed my laptop remotely, and they'd done it cleanly. Who has your passwords? Anita asked. No one. Who's used your Wi-Fi? I opened my mouth. Closed it. Emma, I said quietly. She'd come over dozens of times. Watched movies on my couch. Worked from my kitchen table. Once, when her internet was down, she borrowed my laptop for a whole afternoon while I was at work. At the time, it meant nothing. Now it felt like I'd handed someone a loaded weapon and thanked them for taking it. The second crack came from someone neither of us expected. Josh, the same friend who said I was dead to him. He showed up at my apartment one night, looking like he hadn't slept in days. I shouldn't be here, he said before I could even speak. But something's wrong. I didn't know whether to hug him or punch him. What changed? I asked. He swallowed. Emma asked me to lie. The words hung between us like smoke. She told me if police asked, I should say you'd been ranting about her promotion, that you said she didn't deserve it. I never said that. I know, he whispered, because she asked me before the accident. Cold spread through my chest. Before? Yeah, like a week before. I thought it was weird. I asked why. She said she just wanted to see who her real friends were. Josh looked sick. I think she was building a story. That was the moment denial died. Emma hadn't panicked and blamed me in fear. She had prepared. Carefully. Patiently. Like someone setting a trap and waiting for the right second to snap it shut. Digging into her life felt like betrayal. But she'd already betrayed me in the worst possible way. Anita hired a private investigator. Within days, things started surfacing. Credit card debt. Massive. Hidden from everyone. Online gambling. Risky investments. And one more thing. A life insurance policy. On herself. With an accidental death rider. Beneficiary. Her older sister, Lauren. Policy value, $2.4 million. Date taken out, 3 months before the crash. She planned to die? I asked, horrified. Anita shook her head slowly.
No.
She planned to survive. The room went very quiet. Think about it, she said. Break failure. Blame you. She lives. You go to prison. Lawsuit. Civil damages. Sympathy donations. Media deals. And a best friend who snapped out of jealousy. My stomach turned. She turned her own near death into a business plan, Anita said. And I was the villain she cast. Police confronted Emma with the new evidence. Her story shifted. Suddenly she wasn't sure if I touched the brakes. Suddenly maybe it was just a feeling. Too late. Digital forensics found remote access logs from her tablet to my laptop. Search history. How to alter brake lines without immediate failure. Can deleted emails be recovered? How to frame someone digitally. Dates spanning 2 months. When they arrested her, I didn't feel triumph. I felt hollow, because the person in handcuffs wasn't just my accuser. She was the girl who held my hand at her father's funeral. The voice in my head during every life decision. The person I trusted most on earth. And she'd looked me in the eye for months, while building a version of me that never existed. The charges against me were dropped quietly. No press conference.
No επάλεγη headline.
Just paperwork. Like my life being destroyed had been a clerical error. But Emma's trial was very public. And every message she'd ever sent me, every photo, every laugh, got replayed in court as evidence of manipulation. The jury didn't take long. Guilty, attempted fraud, filing false police reports, digital tampering. She avoided prison with a plea deal and mandatory psychiatric treatment. Some people said she was sick. Some said she was evil. I just knew she was someone I would never fully understand again. The day it ended, I sat alone in my apartment, phone in hand, scrolling through old pictures of us. Beach trips, birthdays, late-night pizza runs, 12 years of memories, and I couldn't tell which ones were real and which ones were rehearsals for the role she needed me to play. I finally understood something that still chills me. She didn't hate me. She didn't want revenge. She just needed a scapegoat, and I was the person who trusted her enough to be easy to destroy. I changed my number, moved apartments, started therapy, because clearing your name doesn't fix your mind. It just gives you space to realize how deeply you were broken. I still have dreams where my phone rings at 11:47 p.m. Unknown number. And for a split second, I'm back in that kitchen, pasta in the microwave, life still normal, before the call that proved the most dangerous people in your life are sometimes the ones who know you best. It's been 2 years since the night my phone rang and split my life into before and after. People assume the hardest part of betrayal is the moment you discover it. It's not. The hardest part is what comes later, when everything is quiet, and you have to rebuild a reality that no longer includes the person who used to live at the center of it. Because Emma wasn't just my best friend. She was the witness to my entire adult life. Every bad date, every career doubt, every stupid joke I'd never repeat in public. She had been there. When she vanished from my world, it felt like someone had deleted half my history. Therapy helped me understand something I didn't want to admit at first. I wasn't just grieving a friendship. I was grieving a version of myself that only existed when she was around. For months after the trial, I couldn't trust my own memories. I'd think of a happy moment, laughing in the rain after our car broke down in college, dancing badly at her cousin's wedding, staying up until 3 a.m. planning imaginary futures where we both made it. And instead of warmth, I'd feel panic. Was she already planning it back then? Was any of it real? My therapist, Dr. Levin, said something that stuck with me. Even if her intentions changed later, your feelings at the time were real. You're allowed to keep your side of the memories. That sentence saved me, because if I let her rewrite my entire past, then she'd still be controlling my life, just from a distance. The public part of the scandal faded faster than I expected. News cycles move on. Outrage has an expiration date, but the private consequences lingered. My old job never asked me back. Budget restructuring, they said. Friends who had doubted me tried to reconnect, awkward and guilty. Some I forgave, some I didn't. Forgiveness, I learned, isn't about being a good person. It's about deciding who still gets access to you after they've seen how fragile your life can become. Josh became one of the few I kept. He showed up when it mattered, even if it was late. We talked a lot about how easy it had been to believe the worst once the story sounded convincing enough. That scares me, he admitted once. How fast I believed you could be a monster. It scares me too, I said, because it means anyone can be turned into one, with the right narrative. About a year after the trial, I got a letter. No return address. Just my name written in handwriting I knew instantly. I almost threw it away. But curiosity has a way of reopening doors you swore you'd nail shut. Inside was a single page. Daniel, I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I'm in treatment now, and for the first time I'm being honest about how much I hated feeling like I was falling behind everyone. You were the closest person to me, and instead of asking for help, I turned you into the enemy in my head. I convinced myself you'd be fine. You're strong. You'd survive it. That lie made it easier to destroy you. I'm sorry for turning your trust into a weapon. Emma. I read it 3 times. Then I folded it up and put it back in the envelope. Not as closure, not as forgiveness, just as proof that the version of her who did this finally understood what she had done. Sometimes accountability is the only apology you get. Rebuilding didn't happen in a big cinematic moment. It happened in tiny, boring steps. Updating my resume, going on walks when anxiety made my chest tight, learning how to sit in a cafe alone without checking the door every time it opened. I started volunteering at a legal aid clinic, helping people navigate false accusation cases and digital fraud situations. Turns out, once you've lived through a nightmare, you get pretty good at guiding others through the dark. One evening, after a long session helping a college kid whose roommate framed him for theft, he looked at me and said, "I don't know how to thank you." I told him the truth. Just build a life they can't take from you again. That's enough. And I realized I was finally taking my own advice. Trust came back slowly, like a muscle I had to relearn how to use. I stopped sharing everything with everyone. I paid attention to inconsistencies instead of brushing them off to keep the peace. But I didn't let myself become cold either, because the final thing therapy taught me was this: Emma's betrayal was a reflection of her brokenness, not proof that connection itself is dangerous. The answer to manipulation isn't isolation. It's boundaries. 2 years later, my life looks different. Quieter, smaller circle, stronger walls, but also more intentional. I have friends who showed up when it counted, work that feels meaningful, and a sense of self that doesn't depend on being someone else's emotional anchor. Sometimes people ask if I miss her. I miss who I thought she was. I miss the laughter that felt effortless. But I don't miss the version of myself who ignored red flags because the friendship felt too important to question. Loyalty without awareness isn't love. It's vulnerability waiting to be exploited. If you're listening to this and thinking, "That could never happen to me," I hope you're right. But pay attention to the small things. The friend who tests your loyalty with hypothetical scenarios. The person who subtly rewrites shared memories. The one who jokes about owing them after every favor. Trust should feel steady, not like a debt you're always repaying. And if you ever find yourself blindsided by betrayal, remember this: someone else's deception does not erase your integrity. You can lose your reputation, your job, your social circle, and still keep the one thing they couldn't steal: the truth. I still keep my phone on silent at night. Unknown numbers go to voicemail. Some habits never fully disappear. But fear no longer runs my life. Caution does. Wisdom does. And a quiet strength I didn't know I had, until the person I trusted most tried to take everything from me. If this story meant something to you, if it made you feel seen, warned, or just a little less alone, stick around. There's power in learning from the worst days of someone else's life. And there's even more power in building a future no one else gets to script for you. Because betrayal may rewrite your past, but it doesn't get to decide who you become next.